Hi, in the last presentation, I talked about waterfall model, its benefits and its problems. We have discussed in detail what are the challenges that waterfall model could pose when it comes to large projects. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the agile, how agile is going to replace waterfall model, its values and principles. So, and the little bit history of agile as well. So let's get into the presentation. Now, after seeing the problems with waterfall model, around 17 stalwarts of software industry at the time, these are developers, and these guys have met in Utah, which is a state in USA, America, and November 2001, and they discussed about having waterfall model in the software development life cycle. Now they realized they put all those problems of waterfall model on a paper, and they discussed the better approach for these waterfall model. Some of those developers include Ken Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland, Ken Beck, Robert Martin, Martin Fowler, etc., etc. These guys, for example, Ken and Jeff are the two guys who have invented Scrum model. Similarly, Robert Martin is a architect kind of guy who actually pioneered solid principles. Martin Fowler is a refactoring guru. He has written many books and provided many insights into how to refactor code. So these are all very experienced and knowledgeable software developers, and they know the problems of software development process and the business communication processes, and they wanted to have something that replaces the waterfall model. Now they thought like waterfall model is good. It's again not completely bad, but there are certain challenges. How to improve them? Their motto for Agile is to uncover the better ways of software development by doing it and helping others to do it. So this actually requires continuous learning, and they actually say Agile is not, unlike waterfall model, it doesn't prescribe any big philosophy or principles. It's not a framework or a process or a methodology. It is actually a mindset or a way of thinking. So that's what they define Agile as. Now Agile software development model, when they created this, they said like it has to have 4 values and 12 principles. Based on that, Agile should be built upon. Again, like I said a few seconds ago, Agile is not a process thing. It is actually a mindset. Now, Agile values represent Agile philosophy at a high level. In each of the, I'm going to talk about the 4 values, and I compare them against the waterfall model values and differentiate how Agile values look better for larger projects compared to the waterfall model. Again, it doesn't mean that the values that are used in waterfall model are not useful at all. They are good up to some extent for some projects, but when it comes to a dilemma whether to do this, whether to follow Agile or waterfall model, I think it's good to follow Agile because this is more value-based model rather than documentation or process-based model. Now let's talk about the Agile values. The first one is individual interactions of Agile versus processes and tools that are followed in waterfall model. In short, it is a people versus processes. Agile says give importance to people, what they say, what they think, compared to what we have documented, what is the process we are following, what are the tools we are following. So instead of that, give importance to people. If the processes and tools needs to be changed, it's okay to change them. But because the people are the one that are going to use software, they will be given more preference. So again, like I said earlier, it is not to say don't use any processes or no tools. No, it's not what it means. It is when it comes to blindly following a process or blindly using a tool, think about it, discuss with among the team members, discuss with your friends, and then come to a conclusion. That's what it says. People thoughts versus processes. The second value is working software over comprehensive documentation. Agile says the software is actually an evaluation thing, not like we know what's going to happen kind of thing. So because a working software is more preferred in Agile compared to documentation. It doesn't mean that documentation is not at all required. Documentation is, yes, it is required, but if you the focus is mostly on creating a huge document like SRS, where you document everything, and then finally you don't get to time or you don't get chance to build the software the way it is built, or you build something totally different because customer change their requirements, then the documentation is useless. So they say yes, documentation is needed as much as it is required, but the preference is given to building the software rather than focusing on what to build, documenting what to build and how to build. And the third value is customer collaboration or contract negotiation. As I told you in my earlier presentation, in waterfall model, customers always have to sign off. Okay, this is what is agreed. Now this is more like an agreement kind of model, waterfall model. Whereas in Agile, there are agreements, there are legal agreements, but at the same time, what needs to be done could be changed by customers while the software is being worked on. So it's okay to allow changes in the middle of software development, because we are actually preparing the software, not the documentation or not the not the contract negotiation. So this is about communicating with the customer on a regular basis, may not be on a day-to-day basis, but a regular basis, and get their feedback, understand what their requirements, if required, change the software. And that's what collaboration versus contract negotiation. The fourth one, the last one, is responding to change over following a strict plan. It is almost connected to the previous one. So in the waterfall model, the SRS as well as the design strictly has to be implemented by the development and testing team. So even if they know that this is not going to be used in the production, they just need to follow it because that's the contract says. Now, Agile opposes that. If there is a change that needs to be done because of the market change, say for example, in the beginning, customer might think something, but because of the market change, maybe some unexpected event like COVID comes in. Now they want to change the requirement. Because we already agreed on certain requirements, we say, no, we don't do it. No, that's not what Agile says. Just take their requirement, understand how much it takes, and allow them to provide their inputs and prioritize, then do that. So that means plans can be changed dynamically, whereas in waterfall model, you set up a plan, don't violate it. So that's what Agile says. So these are the principles of Agile. Like I said in the beginning, waterfall model values are not bad. I mean, they have to be there. At the same time, Agile provides more value. So when it is a choice of either this or that, I think Agile values are more preferred. But waterfall model values are also useful even in the Agile development, because processes and good tools are required. Otherwise, it will be a chaotic development. Documentation is required. Otherwise, how people know that what's being done, right? So minimal documentation is definitely required. Similarly, if customers are allowed to change whatever they want, I mean, the developers will be frustrated because the changes are always coming there. So it's not in a strict way that, neither is a strict way, because waterfall model says strict thing. Agile says, no, it's not like that. Agile says that do it cautiously, but if you want to change it. That's what Agile says. That's what about Agile values. And Agile principles. There are 12 principles that provide guidelines for making decisions on Agile conflicts that may occur in a day-to-day Agile practices. The first principle is satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable stuff. This is a very, very, very important principle of Agile. That means as the first value is working software, second value is working software against comprehensive documentation. This actually aligns to that value. Now, what Agile says is don't just build the software as a big thing, just build a small piece of it, but build everything. Like, let us say a software contains a front end, a middle tier, and a back end. Let's build small pieces of all the three and show it to the customer. So, and make sure that we are going in the right direction. Customer is happy with that. That is the first agile principle. Unlike waterfall model, we see at the end software at the end. So what happens is that in agile model, we develop software in very small increments. We'll do this, show it to the customer, and the second and the next again after some time, maybe that time increment may be 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depends upon the model we follow. But then again show it to the, so it's a small pieces of being done, because if customer says, yeah, this software is not what they are looking for, it is okay, it is easy to rip off and okay to rip off the small one compared to the big one. So that's what Agile says. The second one is welcome changing requirements even in late in the development. As I told you earlier, customers requirements could change because of changing in their business model or to the environment changes or whatever may be the reason. So Agile, unlike waterfall model, Agile doesn't say, don't oppose what customer says. Listen to them, understand what they are asking to change, and come to an estimation, come what it is required, and allow to change the software, allow them to change the software, of course, based on the priorities, get it prioritized and change it. So in waterfall model, we have this change control. So whenever they want a change, it's a big process. Whereas in Agile, yes, changes can be done. Just do it more, people kind of way rather than a documentation kind of way. The third principle is deliver working software frequently. It's kind of tied to the first one. Now, even if it is a small one, if it is delivered for a long duration, then Agile doesn't, that doesn't serve the purpose. What Agile says is create small chunks of the software which is valuable to the customer and deliver it frequently, maybe 2 weeks, like I said, 4 weeks or one month. Don't give it for like 1 quarter or quarterly or annually or something like that, because that will have a huge impact on the timelines as well as customer thought process. So that is the deliver software frequently. The fourth principle is business people and developers must work together. Well, it is understood that business team or the stakeholders may not get time to work with developers on a day-to-day basis. It is fine, but Agile philosophy says they should at least have a timelines of when they need to connect, but that timeline is also should be frequent. That works for both business people as well as it. Customers or business team members should not look at the software until it is done. Customers should get to see on an incremental basis, if not on a timely basis. They should have a schedule of meetings or schedule of connects where developers and business team should connect physically and understand how things are going and change the pace or flow if things needs to be changed from the directions from the business team. The next fifth principle is motivated individuals. So in the waterfall model, this is one of the challenges, like siloed teams where people will be working on the. So it actually has a develops like a enmity kind of thing across all the teams. Now in Agile model, that's not what it is. You work with a QA team on a day-to-day basis. You work with IT team or DevOps team on a day-to-day basis. You work with a security team, if not day-to-day, maybe quarterly basis or monthly basis. So you have a connect with them on a regular basis, not quarterly but monthly basis or fortnight basis. So this would actually make them developers understand the challenges of others, and they will be able to pitch in. They will have an thought process of, okay, we are also part of this team, rather than thinking we are just being used for this purpose and we'll have to go to look for something else in the next thing. So this is very, very important. The next one is face-to-face conversation. As I emphasized earlier, Agile says when there is a need when there is a conflict, rather than documenting it and discussing it and planning, just get together, have face-to-face connection, resolve it quickly, rather than following a plan, following a procedure, all that stuff. So that is one of the agile principles. Next one is working software is the primary measure of progress. In waterfall model, the measure of the progress is like, okay, analysis phase is done, okay, out of 6, one portion is done, 160 is done. But and when you get the SRS, the software is not there. When you come out of the software is not there. How can it be 1/6? Because let's say the other things have gone well, then SRS is not useful, right? So what Agile says is working software is the primary measure. If let's say there is 100 units of software that needs to be done, in the first place you given 1 unit, so you say 1 unit of software, because that 1 unit is actually a software which is useful for customers to use, rather than a documentation or a process, right? So that's what agile principle. Working software is the primary measure of progress. The next principle is sustainable development. Maintain consistent pace indefinitely. Now, progress of the cycles, the development cycles has to be measured in a way. The team understand how much they are able to deliver, how much how much speed they are delivering. With this speed, are we able to come to meet the target or not? So metrics are very, very important in agile model, which I will be discussing in the further presentations. Without that, we don't know how much we are progressing. In the waterfall model, the only metric is completed the phase or not, right? So whereas in Agile, it's not like that. There are several metrics, that says how things are going. Are we able to meet the thing or not? That's what it says. The next one is technical excellence. Now, a waterfall model says that don't change unless it is required to change. Whereas in Agile, it's not like that. If once a software is developed, if you feel that the software could have been done in a better way, it is okay to implement the software in a slightly different way, in a better way, in the next phase of delivery. So technical excellence is given preference. In waterfall model, the security or the performance and everything will come into the last stage. Whereas in Agile, the security, the performance of the application, which are like which are quality attributes of the application or the product, have to be there as part of the product itself. The next agile principle is less is more. This is against waterfall principle. Like in the waterfall, there are provisions that are made for the future. If future we will develop like this. But as in Agile, it says don't do it unless it is required now. So now is important, and developing less software that meets the current need is the principle for the agile model. And the second one is self-organizing team, which is actually connected to motivated individuals. So team should should have an understanding of what other team members does, and also understand the going technologies and stuff, what that's going in the market, and reskill themselves, and they see if they can implement the newer technology into the product so that the product will get better. So that means the team should understand keep updating themselves in a self-organizing way. And the last one is every time they deliver a software in a small iteration, which we discussed already, team should introspect on how they have delivered, what are the challenges, what are the good things they did, what are the challenges, and how can they improve those things. That's what they need to think about. So these are the 12 agile purpose. So this is how we can think of agile model. In a way, we can think agile is a model as waterfall model in very short cycles of waterfall model pages. Now that means, let's say the agile cycle is like 2 weeks. For example, in these 2 weeks, the analysis, the design, the development, testing, deployment, of course maintenance if required, will be done in these 2 weeks. Again, in the next 2 weeks, same thing: analysis, design, development, testing, deployment, maintenance. So it's like for every 2 weeks, the waterfall model is being applied. In a way, it is actually a waterfall model in a very miniature scale. So that's what agile model says. Now, as I have been telling, agile is not a framework or a big process. It only has values and principles. Now, are there any frameworks that follow agile model? Yes. So here are the agile frameworks or practices that are used by several people. These are similar to waterfall model, where like Scrum, where they have some predefined processes or steps that are there. Whereas in agile, it just has only 4 values and 12 principles. And all the following practices that I'm going to talk about in a brief way are actually adhering to the values and principles. Now, there are several of them. Some of them are Scrum. This is an agile model. Kanban, XP, which is nothing but an extreme programming. LSD, lean software development. FUD, feature driven development. BDD, behavior driven development. Crystal, Kaizen. Like that, there are several other practices are there. But in this series of agile presentation, I'm going to talk about Scrum and Kanban only. Thank you very much.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe VNR Digital Learning Resource YouTube channel.